And the plan for today is to take a quick look back to when and why MRxPros came about and how it's evolved during the last sort of 4 years. So we'll also take this opportunity to remind all of us some of the best practices of being part of the community, but we'll sneak them in quickly at the end. And actually all the newcomers now get this information in their sort of welcome letter and welcome pack, but many of us predate that or might have forgotten what some of the rules of engagement were. So we'll just have a quick check-in on that at the end. And then right at the end, we'd love to just turn on the mics and open up the floor to everybody to join in and just talk about what we're grateful for, and also any thoughts and ideas for this community at the end, how we can make it better and bolder for the future. So just to set the scene about the origins and why something was needed at this time, I think we can probably all remember the beginning of 2020. Frankie just mentioned it, and it wasn't that long ago, but I have to say, it feels like a lifetime to me. So here's a little mini trip down memory lane.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China.
We think we have it very well under control. We pretty much shut it down, coming in from China.
You know, in April, supposedly it dies with the hotter weather. When it gets warm, historically, that has been able to kill the virus. People are getting better. They're all getting better. And the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero.
It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
And you'll be fine.
They're going to have vaccines, I think, relatively soon. Not only the vaccines, but the therapies. Therapies is sort of another word for cure.
We're talking about very small numbers in the United States.
Our numbers are lower than just about anybody.
It's really working out, and a lot of good things are going to happen.
And we are responding with great speed and professionalism. It's going to go away.
Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all.
We're going to all be great. We're going to be so good. This came up, it came up so suddenly.
This is a pandemic.
I felt it was a pandemic long before it was called a pandemic. All you had to do is look at other countries.
The coronavirus, you know that, right? Coronavirus. And this is their new hoax. We're 15 people in this massive country, and because of the fact that we went early, we could have had a lot more than that. We're doing great. Our country is doing so great.
Okay, I hope it made you smile. It made me smile. And there were so many choices because there were so many damn memes and videos. It really brought out the creativity in people this phase. But we do all know how it turned out, right? Over 110 million Americans have had COVID, and over 1.2 million Americans have actually now died from it. It was just sort of our turn. There seems to be a pattern. Every 100 years, there's a global health crisis. And let's hope, along with everything else speeding up, this doesn't speed up as well. And most of us will not be around for the next one when it happens. But known as coronavirus, or in a more familiar way as COVID-19. And actually, anybody who hasn't had it yet, drop your in the chat and say, not me. I'm really interested to know out of this community, how many people have not had it yet? Let's see how many people. We'll have a look in a minute. But just to remind us of some of the, I don't know, the changes that went on, it was really dramatic. Social distancing became a thing and became normal behavior everywhere we went. Like, we couldn't go close to each other. There was no hugging. Even outside, we had to be apart from each other, along with masking up. And there were endless messages and jokes about both of these new behaviors. And there was also a lot of social isolation that crept in, right? Scoop Insights moved to be entirely virtual, along with every other research company. Friends started making all different types of face masks, and here's a shot of Katrina and me wearing a beautiful mask made by our research colleague Karen Goldsmith to brighten up our day. I don't know how many she made, and she sent them to all of us, which was wonderful. And do you remember how many different types and styles of masks there were? Anybody ever heard of N95 who wasn't in the medical profession before this time? And now it like rolls off the tongue. And we each had our favorite type of mask, right? Everybody knew their favorite one. And all socializing moved outside, even get-togethers with family. Even the closest thing you could get to a hug was wearing masks and being an arm's length away from each other. Neighborhood street bands, I don't know, my neighborhood seemed to emerge out of nowhere. And drive-in movies that I had never been to before re-emerged and made a sort of speedy comeback. You can just about tell that's what that is in the bottom right. And where I live in San Francisco, I don't know, teddy bears were put in the windows to entertain local children. Pots and pans were banged at 6 p.m. every night to honor and recognize all our healthcare workers risking their lives on our behalf. My husband discovered what a vacuum was and became strangely domestic. I actually managed to snap this photo of him. And I finally had the perfect excuse to buy my own Pilates reformer, which I still get to enjoy today, as does my turkey. During shutdown, Ryder, our dog, and myself, of course, got so many walks. I think he thought he'd died and gone to heaven. I got into snapping pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge as if somehow it would look different each time I passed it. Thank goodness the sky changes every time, and the different views that you can get of it are sort of amazing. But tell me what you all started doing as hobbies and activities. What did you take up during COVID? Just drop them in the chat so that we can see all the new things that we actually started doing. Whilst we stopped doing other things, we started a whole load of new things, right? Another thing I started doing was I really started noticing nature in my neighborhood in a way I just never had before. I took thousands of these photos, and finally I have a chance today to share them with anybody else. So here are just a few of them. And I just became obsessed with the sort of spectacular beauty of flower heads, as you can see from this slide. I don't know, I urge all of you to really study them going forward, because nature truly is amazing, as we know. Jamin, can you see what anybody put in the chat? Any new hobbies or activities?
Yeah, lots of things. I did not know this, but Laura Bright, she started bagel making. We have dog walking, or sorry, adopted dogs, watercolor painting. Yeah, Chris, Zoom communications. That was a new hobby for all of us. Excuse me, lost power of speech. Photography. Frankie, she learned to do her nails full acrylic. I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds very difficult. Homemade gluten-free grandma baking. Oh, granola baking. Sue, grandma baking. Oh my gosh, I'd be right over for that. I miss my grandma. Working in market research, Frankie. That's right. You actually started your career right at the height of walking into the pandemic. That's crazy. Think about that. Video making and MRxPros walking. Kevin, just some of them.
I love it. Love it. And I'm going to look at the tally at the end of how many people said not me for having COVID. I fear it won't be many of us at this point. Thanks for sharing those, Jamin, and for everybody. Anyone else? Nobody else mentioned this, like drinking. Anyone find their alcohol consumption went up? Our local wineries from Napa and Sonoma literally started delivering wine to our front door. They would come and bang on the door and they'd have it in the back of their cars in order to stay in business. So I think a lot of businesses became quite creative to stay alive, including many research companies. Remember the food deliveries that came right to your door? Instacart, finally took off. Thank goodness it existed already. A vaccination was developed scarily fast, and we all compared notes on which vaccination was the better one to get, which one made you feel less ill. And remember those vaccination cards that you really had to carry everywhere? I don't know about you guys, but I was sort of surprised on this little trip down memory lane of some of the better things that came out of COVID. And eventually we were allowed to form support bubbles, such a lovely term, with a limited number of people that you could see as your familiar group. Memes and cartoons and jokes were abundant. I could have had slides of those alone. But Jamin, tell us all what was going on in your world back then, and tell us about your support bubbles.
It really was a tale of two cities for me. We can go back. I hate this picture. Go to the next slide, please. For me, the real moment was of the tale of two cities was my wife is a school teacher, and there's a lot of support that children in the U.S. get from schools, and we oftentimes don't think about that, especially if you're in more of the middle class or even affluent socioeconomic status. And things like access to food, access to protection, like these are all real. And so for me, it was quite literally like these two different. Part of me very selfishly enjoyed this time because I was able to connect with my family in a way that I historically had never been able to do, being on the road almost 75% of the time, if not more. And so it just really re-anchored and solidified my relationships. But watching my wife trying to struggle through teaching, and we actually had in our neighborhood, parents would drop their kids off at our schools or at our house for their remote learning support. It was quite an exciting time for me. And then the week before this, I sent this tweet. I was on Twitter. In those days, I was big on Twitter and absolutely loved it. And there was a random tweet that went off by the head of growth for Airbnb. And he said, "Hey, listen, I'm just going to throw an hour on the calendar. Love to chat with you. I'm sick of sitting at home by myself." And I'm like, that is such a great idea. And so I participated in it. And as I was kind of in that moment, there were movie stars that joined randomly. There were professional athletes that were on that call. And it just sort of like ballooned up to hundreds of people simultaneously being on a Zoom call. I was surprised Zoom didn't break in those days because the platform has completely evolved since then. And so anyway, for me, just saying, hey, let's throw something up and see what happens with the MRx community. And sure enough, I think there was a handful of people that attended our very first session, and it just sort of evolved after that. The part that was really important to me was less monologuing like I'm doing right now, and more about community engagement and opportunity for people to get to know each other. Because it was amazing to me that as market researchers, at that point I'd spent 20 years in the industry. I had done business with a lot of people, but I didn't actually know people at a personal level. And so it just forged really good relationships. And we had some great speakers that we were able to help facilitate and introduce to our industry. Head of strategy from Procter & Gamble, The guy who invented the mouse was Steve Jobs. I mean, some pretty neat attendees. It was a great time. Yeah, in that way. Gosh, is this the first one? Was it April 17th? Randomly, right?
So the very first one was back
March,
on
right?
Yeah.
March. And then just kind of became part of the discipline of, we didn't have any formalization around groups. And then I approached Janet and said, why don't we create a Google group that'll help create sort of an asynchronous opportunity for us to be able to interact as market research professionals. And so I think we had that conversation initially in person, Janet, if I remember correctly. I was just dying to have some face-to-face time. So I drove up to San Francisco, and yeah, we had a really nice, because you're so leisurely still at this point in our lives. Things weren't moving at the pace that they were before or are now. So I was able to take a whole day and just drive up and meet with Janet. That was a day in the life of it. And so she started the Google group, which is still going very strong. I love getting those emails almost every day. Yeah, those are the first 12 members. So crazy. And almost the first 12 members of the MRxPros group. At home, Julie Curd had bought me a mouse pad. I don't have the mouse pad with me, but at home, she had taken a screenshot of the first meeting that she had attended. And yeah, so it just kind of kept evolving. At the end of the day, the success of this community is quite literally each person that's on this call. It's a heavy lift as a facilitator, but just because you have to be, no matter what's going on in your life, you have to participate. I remember the first Thanksgiving that we had in 2020. We were like, should we cancel it? Should we not cancel it? We decided to keep it as part of the rigor of community support, because we knew that first Thanksgiving was going to be very isolating for a large part of our community. We didn't want them to have to go through that alone. And so we maintained that rigor around just, no matter what, we're always going to be here. We're always going to support each other. And then that led to one of the more infamous moments in the community. Now, you got to remember, in those days, there was no standard operating procedure for how to correctly host a Zoom meeting, and so everybody could share their screen, everybody could share video. We didn't have any administrator permissions for anybody. It was quite literally everybody was the same from a host perspective. And me being naive 40-something, late 40s, I just didn't anticipate us getting porn boomed. And so we had, who was it? Michelle from McDonald's, I think. Or no, she was at Mars Wrigley at the time. She was going to be our guest speaker. And right after I did the introduction, somebody took over screen share or started sharing their screen, which was this. I'm sorry about the graphic nature of what I'm about to say, but it was big dick porn. There's just no other way to say it. So I was so flustered, I literally stood up with my laptop and was ready to throw it down on the ground in hopes that somehow that would magically turn the Zoom off. I just didn't know what to do. And so I had then started trying to overshare on top of theirs, which made it even worse, because then I had basically the whiteboard where you could draw on it. And it said, now Jamin's sharing. So it was just such a awful, heart-racing, therapy-inducing or causing moment in the group. Thankfully, none of you had to go through that since, I believe. So best practices were put in place on how we do it. All right, we can keep going. You guys all know these people by heart. Kate went to Peloton, and now she's at Oura Ring. She was a big part of our Friday event, which was the MRx Fun Day. Basically, we did a game day on Fridays. And again, just more mental health and support within the community.
Yeah, and this early team really, kicked it off, made it happen. Kate was key, and then Laura Bright took over that Fun Friday from Kate, also setting up the book club. And honestly, Marilyn Hayward Page helped enormously by setting up and hosting our website. She also created our MRxPros identity that we take for granted now. She creates all the ad flyers, not just for our Tuesday talks, but also for our monthly deep dive discussions. And not to forget, Julie and Doug, and Julie was sad she couldn't be here today, who really drove all that early programming and helped support Jamin on that front while Jamin was hosting. And Frankie set up our LinkedIn presence originally, and was a sort of the tech expert behind the scenes, making this happen every week, and now Joseph has kindly taken over. So it took a village back then, and it still takes a village today. And I kicked off fairly early the deep dive discussions, because I just love to go deep on things. And sometimes the Tuesday talk was just not enough time. There was just so much more to be said on a topic. So they kicked off too. Early days. And then, this is the amazing website that Marilyn kindly created for us. And just a reminder to everybody, see where our little turkey is there. Whenever you know a colleague who you think might benefit from becoming a member, definitely send them here. And they will find that become a member button, click on that, and then Laura does a magical job nowadays, kindly took over from me a year or so ago, from actually processing all the people into the group and sending them welcoming letters and all that sort of stuff. And then just a reminder, what's in it for everybody. Obviously, the Google Group's our main hub of all communication and between members of MRxPros. The Tuesday talks, 30 minutes every Tuesday, 11 a.m., as we all know. Fun Fridays recently moved to 10 a.m. Pacific time and happen every Friday for 30 minutes. The book club gathers for 90 minutes every 6 weeks, usually on a Friday at 1 p.m. The deep dive discussions are once a month, again on a Friday. We really hit Fridays, but 12 p.m. Pacific time, which and again, super enjoyable. We've had some amazing speakers, and watch out for emails about both the book club and the deep dive discussions, and look out for the Zoom links in those emails. And then, again, don't check out our LinkedIn occasionally. And if you see a post on LinkedIn about an event for MRxPros, do consider resharing with your own network. And I just couldn't not share this photo. This was an amazing blanket that I received totally out of the blue when I had a rather large birthday during the shutdown. I think Frankie was the organizer of this, and a bunch of people chipped in. But it was just part of the kindness and the support that I think MRxPros gave a lot of people. I have to say that's my daughter hiding behind the blanket, holding it up for me. But it really has been an amazing journey, and I personally am so grateful to have gotten to know so many people, and I really hope I will continue to meet new people in the group as well. So thank you to all of you. Eventually, this amazing team of Kai, Colson, Sue, and Joseph took over from that early Tuesday talk team, as I think of them, to keep things moving forward. And we're so grateful, again, to you all. And Kai, unfortunately, couldn't be here today. She lost her grandmother recently, and they had a service for her today. Of course, thanks to Doug and Julie and Frankie and Jamin, the first team who were officially relieved from their leadership duties when this new team of volunteers took over. I think Frankie is the link that kept going as well. So thank you, Frankie. And again, I want to mention that a couple of years ago now, Kai's company Ebony and Colson's Clarity Access stepped up when we suddenly had to start paying for our website, and it was not a small amount of money, and they generously sponsor this quietly and behind the scenes without most people knowing, and have continued to do so this year. So thank you. We're very grateful to both of you for stepping up and putting your own money into this group. We try for it not to cost anybody anything other than time, but sometimes it happens. Quick look back at some of the Tuesday talk topics. You can just get a sense of the real range of stuff. These were from 2023, and as you know, that's normally a sort of 10-minute talk or a mini presentation. And then I urge you all to join, because you get these 15-minute breakout discussions after the talk, usually against a question posed by the speaker. But then you get a chance to really meet some of the other MRxPros. And when I've enjoyed meeting somebody, I reach out and say, let's have coffee, and let's meet, have a coffee chat. And I know next year there is a plan to sort of experiment with some different formats as well, for maybe not just always having a talk, but having more community sessions. And we had a panel recently that was trialing a new format recently, or a depth interview between Sue and a speaker. So lots of interesting talks. And Sue, Colin has kindly taken over hosting these. And Sue, I urge you to put your email in the chat, because if anybody has something they want to share with the community, really it's a 10-minute talk usually, and it's a great chance to share some thoughts with them. It could be a rare hobby you have, a life experience, something that made you think differently, that you think the community would benefit from, maybe a research conundrum, or a new idea in research you just want to bounce off others and get people talking about and thinking. So don't hold back. It's a great opportunity. Reach out to Sue. She is our programming guru, and it's a really fun, low-pressure way to share something you have to say. So don't hold back. It's all about the community. I wanted to mention the Fun Fridays with Laura. Again, these are Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're on the East Coast, come and have a late lunch with us. Usually around 6 to 15 people. And it's staying as one group. And Laura introduces a great topic. And it's just sort of unstructured conversations, unrelated to work topics. This is about getting to know each other. And you'll never imagine, where the conversation leads on some of these. And I realize we're running out of time, so I'm going to go very fast. But like the color purple, who knew? That was one Laura introduced. Took us in all sorts of directions. Who knew that could be an interesting topic? And I loved the sandwich of love. What a great topic that was. So she's very creative in her themes as well. And look at all these books that we have. Well, this is just some of the books we've read in the last 4 years at the book club. Just imagine how much more knowledgeable you will be if you'd actually all read these too. I have to say, I found it a way to hold myself accountable. I listen to them while I'm walking my dog. And I just love the discussion we all have about these. It makes the books I've read, A, more meaningful, B, something I've hated, I can turn around and actually love when I've listened to everybody else's perspective on it. It's a great way to change one's mind and hear how other people come at the same information and what we've all taken out of the same thing. Great reminder that we all see things in such different ways. So come, and you don't have to have read the book to come along. You can just listen in if you want, come for part of it, help you decide whether you want to. Read the book. And Laura, our fearless leader of this as well, comes up with these great titles, and really enjoyed all of them. Here are some of the deep dive discussions that have hit us. These are actually all on the events tab on the MRxPros.com website, so you can check them out. There've been some amazing speakers, and the format for this is usually a 45 to 60-minute presentation, and then open discussion and Q&A as one group with the speaker, so you get to answer, ask questions and see what they have to do. And don't forget our Google group. It's a great way to communicate with each other. We encourage new members to introduce themselves via this group, although preferably not an entire resume. It's great if you ever need expertise or knowledge from or advice from fellow members, reach out. Or if you know of or you're hosting a great event of some sort that you think would be directly beneficial to the community, please think to share it here. And if there's a fee, you must be honest up front in the first line of the email. We don't want nasty surprises when you go to sign up and discover something costs money. If you need recommendations from others in the group on just about anything related to market research, or even an insurance broker, there have been all sorts of topics. This is a great place to start. Maybe you've got a methodology question. I know Yogesh posted one recently about personas, and the approach to personas led to a really rich discussion. And if you know of a job or a speaker opportunity, do think to share it here. And if all the emails get too much, you go to this link at the bottom here, and you can change the cadence of receiving emails. And instead of having everyone, you can have it as a digest or an abridged version. And then just some reminders of some useful tips, perhaps, about the Google group. Just always remember to try and have good intentions and be looking to help others. We find that the more you give, the more you get out of the group. And please, 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 please use a clear subject line when emailing the whole group, because one of the benefits of this is you can delete it if it's not relevant to you, but also when you want to check out past conversations, because you know there was one on something and you're looking for moderators in Spain or whatever it was that you remember a past conversation, it means it's much easier to find them on the conversation tab in the Google group. So check that out, and just think a little bit more prudently about whether you reply all. If you think the information is useful to everybody, please go ahead and use reply all, but otherwise a direct reply is sometimes better. And avoid emails that sell to the whole group. We're all part of a company, or even if it's just our own, we all have something to sell each other. But if we all started selling randomly here, just imagine how many emails there would be. So be careful with that. But if someone reaches out and asks for help with something and you can help with it, feel free to shout about your company and how it can answer that problem, so that we all learn what each other's companies do over time. And please don't discuss pricing in public. It's just not allowed. Nothing to do with us. It's just the antitrust laws. But never be afraid to reach out and send an email to the whole group if you've got a question for everybody. There've been a few other things that sparked out of MRxPros, also useful resources. Marilyn Hayward-Page has run a few free sessions on things like how to build your LinkedIn profile. Mike Collins hosts a spreadsheet of recruitment and fieldwork companies, so check in with him if you ever need that. Gary Rudman has a spreadsheet of all the moderators around the world. Again, great resource. Check in with Gary if you need access to that. The Insights Career Network actually sparked out of MRxPros when it became apparent that there was going to be way too many emails about jobs to keep them all within this. And so thanks to Doug Keith and Maya Kantak and JC Weber, Justin Hawkins, and especially Brian Fowler, who still leads the ICN sessions every 2 weeks, and all the other volunteers who've done so much to establish ICN. And various people have initiated in-person get-togethers at conferences or just in their local area. Always be brave enough to stick your hand up and do one of those sometime. And we encourage you to instigate virtual coffee chats and link in with each other on LinkedIn. There have been impromptu group discussions as well. If there's a topic in the chat in the Google group that you think could be a really useful discussion topic, you can set up and invite people to it. You might get one other person, you might get 20. We did one on remesh and it was super interesting and helpful. We've got one on AI coming up that I will post soon. I'm sure I've forgotten something that somebody's done, so please forgive me. I really appreciate you all. And just remember, this was a community that was triggered by COVID, but it is a free community and it is run entirely by volunteers. So be kind to them, please. And word of mouth is how we've grown. I think we're about 5 people short of 900 members now, which is pretty impressive from the 12 starters. And there's only one qualification to join, which is to be something to do with market research. And there are lots of different research communities, UX research, CX research, consumer insights, we're all called different things. And also government, student, academic, political researchers. does them in so many different roles, and it's how we stay abreast of it all and learn from each other. You can be in-house, you can be agency, you can be in sales, you can be in research ops. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do, if you're part of the community, they're welcome. So think of the colleagues and friends you have out there who might benefit too. The reason we have a personal email address is because it is about you as a member, not the company you work for. And we don't have the bandwidth, frankly, to update members every time they leave a job and start another job. And Gmail, surprise, surprise, prefers Google Groups prefer a Gmail address, so just remember to use a Gmail if possible. And it was never designed for businesses, so it doesn't like corporate email addresses, and it's a lot of extra work trying to track people down and get them to sign up with a new email address. So join in, enjoy it. Here were some of the quotes from members. This was actually after the 100th Tuesday talk. I think Jamin reached out to everybody and said, what do you enjoy about it? What are you thankful for? So we can see it's about meeting new people, taking a break, finding your voice, learning from each other, or just when you need an energy or a positivity boost. It truly is all about the people and all of you. So thank you all for being part of it. I think last night when I checked, it was 893 members. We've got about 55 people who are pending, so I think we're going to jump over 900 pretty damn soon. And by pending, it means they just haven't accepted the invite yet. Laura has to chase everybody before it disappears from usually their spam box, to make sure that they say yes. So grateful to all of you. Would love to hear in the chat anything you're grateful for about the community, but also any thoughts you have about the future and how it could be better. And I'm sorry we've run over. It always happens, right? Particularly when I've got the mouthpiece. But I do truly want to thank you all, and grateful for you being here today, and very happy Thanksgiving.